Hi, it is Wednesday. Welcome to Wedding Planning Wednesdays. Sorry, I am a little late today. I've had what feels like a long week already for some reason, but I'm trying to keep it together. So I'm here. But I hope you are having a good week. It is time to head into spring, I think. We are heading into daylight savings. We're going forward in time, which means we lose an hour. I don't know, that always kind of messes with my head, but it's going to be nice because we are going to have more daylight, obviously, toward the end of the day. But honestly, I just never understood daylight savings. I just wish it could just remain one time. And honestly, it didn't even really feel like in LA we've had much of a winter. I know there were times we got rain, but it hasn't been that cold, which I'm not complaining about for sure. So anyway, welcome today. If you are tuning in, I don't. If you are chatting, I don't know because I don't know where my chat box went. It's always something. But thank you for being here. If you're tuning in from home or just watching the replay, whatever it is. And today we're going to talk about one of my favorite topics. We could probably talk about this forever, is people and dealing with people. And I wanted to talk about guest etiquette because there is such a thing as guest etiquette. And yes, it applies to you. And I also wanted to talk about how to set up guests for success as well as the couple. And I think, it goes both ways. You should be a good guest if you're invited to a wedding and you're attending a wedding, but you can also be a good host, right, as the couple planning the wedding and throwing the event. I think, with people, because everyone is so different, there's just always challenges, whenever you're dealing with family or friends or wedding party or whatnot. And it is no different when it just comes to your general guest population. So that's something that I'm going to discuss today. And if you're new here, my name is Jane Yu. I am the co-founder and lead event planner or wedding planner at UNS Events, and I help engaged couples plan and design their wedding from beginning to end. And I really love helping them make intentional decisions that are the right choices for their wedding day and for them to show up as unapologetically as themselves on their wedding day. If you do enjoy this video, I would really love if you could hit that like button for me, and you can always subscribe for more content. And I also have a handy wedding planning checklist and timeline that you can download, a free wedding planning guide. It's linked in the description below, and it'll get you started, just providing step-by-step guidance in phases so that you don't get too overwhelmed for what's going to be a very stressful process anyway. As always, I'm going to start with my life enhancement tip. There are just people around me that are just going through a lot of different sort of things in their life, just personal circumstances, and I'm not going to get too far into it, but sometimes as a friend or family member who is on the sidelines, kind of watching things unfold and trying to be there for those people, I think it's sometimes easy to feel like, what can I really be doing? And, a lot of times, of course, showing up or sending things like flowers or trying to make their life easier, like sending food or making them food or something like that, that is obviously helpful and you can show up in those ways. But I think, honestly, one of my love languages that I love to utilize, and I love to give as well as receive in this way, is words of affirmation. And I mean, I love sending voice notes to friends. But if you haven't done it before, you should try it. Because in this day and age, I feel like talking on the phone isn't really done anymore. And I do catch up with friends on the phone or FaceTime here and there. But as you get older, everyone has their own lives, everyone has families. It's just really hard to sync up schedules. So sometimes I send voice notes, and honestly, it can be as short as 45 seconds or as long as 10 minutes. I've received 10 minutes or longer of voice notes. You know who you are if you're one of my friends watching this at all. But, sometimes it's really fun to receive one, and it's really also great to give one. So I asked one of my friends, like, hey, I know you're going through a lot right now. In what way can I make you feel better? Like, do you want words of encouragement, or do you want words of empowerment, or do you want to, just vent to me, or do you want me to acknowledge that everything sucks right now? Like, so I kind of asked what version they want, and I started to text this because, it can be conveyed through text. But then I was like, it doesn't have the same impact. I feel like when you hear your loved one's voice, just sending you words of encouragement. And I wanted to share that today because if you haven't sent one or received one, I think it's high time that you do. So maybe this will inspire you to send a note to someone you love, or someone that is going through something, or someone you want to reconnect with. And that's my life enhancement tip of the week. So heading into the guest etiquette portion, there's a few different stages, of course, of a wedding. The wedding guest doesn't, is not really involved in like the pre-planning process, of course. But once you receive the invite or save the date, that's when you obviously get the news of this wedding that is happening. And I think on the couple's end, it's very important to be as clear as possible, just about general details. And I feel like this is something that most couples do about, invite time, like what time ceremony will start, etc. And I think with the guest list, it's important to be clear about if someone does have a +1 or does not have a +1. And also if it's a kid-friendly wedding or if it's an adults-only affair. I know this is a little bit of a hot topic and people have different perspectives on it, but I will share mine. And I think as the person receiving the invite, if you clearly do not have a +1, don't bring an uninvited +1. Don't RSVP for an uninvited +1. And also if it's an adults-only affair, that is, that you should respect the couple's wishes for that. I think on the couple's end, I think when I was thinking back to when we were doing our wedding and or our guest list, and it was, we did want to keep it a certain number. And, there were friends who had just recently started dating somebody that we didn't really know. And so those people, again, this might be a hot topic, but, we didn't necessarily invite those +1s, the people that we didn't know. But for anybody we thought would feel uncomfortable at our wedding because they didn't really know anybody else, we allowed them a guest. So I feel like even if you're inviting people, as long as they have people that they know at the wedding and can have a good time, it's okay if you don't provide them a +1 if you don't have that room. But if someone is coming who doesn't know anybody, I think it's a nice gesture to allow them to bring a guest because that'll just enhance their experience. Of course, like as you get the guest list in, if you want to extend some extra seats that you might have, 2 +1s, I think that's okay. But, of course, it's a personal preference. I guess my point is, as the couple, I feel like you don't have to feel obligated to invite everyone's significant others, especially if they just recently started dating or if you don't know them. But for longer term relationships or people that you're close to, I'm sure you would invite them anyway. As the guest, I know the adults only wedding is hard sometimes for people with families because you do want, especially if you want to go, but you feel like you have to say no because of that rule. And unfortunately, I think that's just what it is. It's your choice if you want to arrange for childcare and leave your child at home, or maybe if it's 2 parents that are invited. or a couple that's invited, maybe one has to stay home with the kid, and whoever the, whether it's the mom or the dad, that's like the main friend of the couple, you can decide who will go. And I know that's a sucky situation, and I totally get it. But at the end of the day, that's what the couple wishes, and you just have to make your choice based on their rules or the policy. That sounds so formal, but just based on like what the invitation notes. And it's that choice is up to you. You can only control like what you decide to do with that invite. And I don't think you should complain to the couple or ask them to make exceptions. I think one exception that can be made is if, I had a bunch of friends who had babies that year that were born the year of our wedding. And it hadn't crossed my mind until one of my friends asked, hey, can I bring my 9-month-old because she's still breastfeeding? And I was like, oh, that's totally fine. So I extended it to all my friends who had babies that year. Like, hey, if you want to bring your baby because you're still breastfeeding or because, just general attachment or separation anxiety, I extended it to them because I only thought that was the right thing to do. And funnily enough, no one else brought their babies. But my one friend did. And I think all my friends appreciated that I extended that to them. Of course, there may be exceptions for immediate family members. I had my two nephews who were the ring bearers. They were at the wedding, but no other children. And, again, that's up to the couple. So I wouldn't be like, hey, your nephews are coming, your nieces are coming, why can't my kids come? And again, that's really up to the couple. And you can always make the choice to not go. You can give a gift or just arrange for something that's going to work for you. I've also had, people, I know people who have gone to destination weddings with their kids, but then in the market, or not in market, in the city that they're going to, they'll arrange for childcare or maybe group childcare because other people are bringing their kids. So that is an option as well, but there's definitely workarounds to it. But my point again is it's appropriate to, and it's just etiquette to honor the couple's wishes in that regard. And then for couples, when you're sending the invitations, you probably have a website or somewhere where guests can find information. And I think you should share as much information as possible, like arrival time, parking, if there's valet, if there's a shuttle from somewhere, those types of things. And however you're going to distribute that information, maybe some people don't want a website, then you can send email communication out. And that's just what you do as a host. You want to make sure everyone has the information that they need. Or let's say it's going to be a ceremony at the beach, so heels are going to be uncomfortable. Or it's in the desert, so maybe you want to, people want to wear wedges or, not stiletto heels. I think sharing those kind of environmental things are very helpful. For the guest, I think don't text the couple and ask for information. First things first, you should look at the website, look at all the materials that were sent to you. If you can't find it there, then I would ask them for the information. And if it's like the week of or even the month of or like 2 weeks before, I would try not to bother them. I would maybe go through a friend or family member or wedding party member instead, just because you don't want them to be bombarded with the last few weeks of planning coming up. And I think just make sure that you do your due diligence first before reaching out to the couple or anybody else. Going back to the invite RSVP situation, RSVP by the deadline. They give you a deadline, stick to it. A lot of times it's, you can do it pretty easily. And honestly, I've been guilty of this too as the guest. And I shouldn't be because I'm a planner and I've also gotten married and I know how frustrating it is. And I get it, life happens sometimes, but like having to chase guests for a yes or no is just really, really tough, especially if it's a yes. I think if it's a verbal no, like, okay, maybe, but if you're going to RSVP, yes, there's information they might need from you, like dietary restrictions, and send you, like maybe they're asking questions that they need answers to because they need to relay it to the venue. Sometimes people need to know like how many people are driving, like to get an accurate quote for valet and things like that. So I think just RSVPing the deadline is very important, or just RSVPing period, because some people just don't RSVP at all. And then if you RSVP, yes, then you should show up to the wedding. If something happens last minute, that happens sometimes, I get it. But you should let the couple know, that's an instance where you want to let the couple know, like, hey, I'm actually not going to be able to make it, because at the very least then the planner or coordinator can adjust the seating, and then there's just not like empty seats lying around. And people are wondering, like, where are these people? Where are these guests? And I've seen that before. I've seen empty seats at weddings and people just don't know where those guests were. It happened at our wedding too. Like, I had family members that didn't show up, and like extended family. And honestly, that could have been a communication disconnect with my parents. But it happens. So, if an emergency does happen, that's definitely one situation where you do want to let the couple know, extend your apologies so that they can at least make adjustments on their end. And then at the wedding, or I guess it's kind of pre-wedding too, sometimes couples will have a dress code. A lot of the time it's standard, I think, cocktail attire, black tie, etc. But I think you definitely want to give, as the couple, as much notice to the guests as possible, especially if you're going to have something a little more themed, or if it's something that's going to take some time to prepare for and you want people to show up in a certain way. I think, or if you have like an out-of-the-box dress code, you want to give everyone enough time to prepare. And I think that's only fair, especially if you want them to show up as that. And one of John's clients that he DJ'd for last year, I asked her what the dress code was, because I noticed everyone looked a certain way, and it was 80s black tie, like the decade 80s, 1980s black tie, and it was so good. Like, everyone looked really good, and it was so on theme, and it was totally like the whole venue and the vibe was kind of like The Wedding Singer, the movie theme, and so it totally worked. And of course, like, you don't want to be telling your guests like, oh, hey, by the way, like 2 weeks before it's going to be 80s black tie, because that's not like a normal, like, standard outfit that people would have. And so if you want them to, actually follow the dress code, then it's important, I think, for you to, as the couple, to give everyone time to prepare. As the guest, I'm assuming that if you're friends with a couple who, wants to have fun with the dress code, that you're probably a friend that is going to adhere to it. But even if you're not so jazzed by it, I would at least put in a little bit of effort, because, that's something that they want. I'm sure the dress codes a lot of times are encouraged. It's not like you have to, obviously, like required. But, of course, you're not going to, like, if it's a black tie, you're not going to show up in jeans, is what I'm saying. I don't know if you should ever really show up to a wedding in jeans, unless it's super casual, for sure. But, I think putting in a little bit of effort goes a long way. This one is like a pretty sensitive topic because I'm thinking back to our wedding. I think as a guest, don't go empty-handed to a wedding. Everyone, of course, has different levels of financial comfortability. Everyone's budgets are different. You might already be spending money going to a destination wedding. But at the same time, any kind of gesture, whatever the cost is, or whatever you may give, It doesn't have to be expensive. It can be a card or like just something thoughtful, some type of care package. You can also do group gifts. So maybe they have something really expensive on their registry that nobody's going to buy just as one person. Maybe you get a group together to pitch in so that they can get this very expensive item. And I think the main point that I'm trying to make is it's really about the gesture. And I think it's a little bit, I don't know what the word is. Not like being the one getting married and then not even getting a card from that person. I just feel like it's a little bit weird. And I really do feel like it's not good etiquette or good showing up to go completely empty-handed. And so if you do go empty-handed, also, sometimes you forget or sometimes you're just strapped or for time or whatever, and that's totally fine. You can always send them something after or via email or whatever it is. But my point is, don't forget to send a gift. This was definitely a hot topic. I saw this clip on the Shade Room. It was like a few months ago or maybe longer, but it was about someone who went to a wedding and they forgot to bring the gift and they were intending on sending it. But then the couple or the bride emailed them and said, hey, like we didn't get your gift. And it was like, it went viral. And I am curious to know, like, if it was you getting married and people didn't give you a gift, like, would you chase them and be like, hey, where's your gift? At our wedding, a handful of people, or like more than a handful, I would say like 10 to, 15 people, like didn't give us anything. And I think also beyond that, it just gives me a little bit of pause to, I just wonder about why that happened. But, I'm not going to hold it against them, but I certainly did not chase them and ask for one because that's their choice. If that's what they're going to choose to do, then what can I do really? But yeah, this Shade Room clip, it was just funny because this woman, the bride, like followed up multiple times to this guest about not giving them a gift. And I don't know what the end result was, if they did end up sending it or not. But I do feel like at that point, like if I was getting hassled by the couple for not sending one and I had been intending on sending one, I would just not want to send it anymore. So that's just my point of view, but curious, like would you chase someone and ask them for a gift if they didn't send you one? And on another note, have you been to a wedding where you didn't give a gift? And I also think when you're invited to a bridal shower, you should also give a gift there. Like if you were close enough to be invited to the bridal shower, it doesn't have to be anything grand. I just think, again, it's just about the gesture. And so I think that's just something to think about. A little bit of effort both ways goes a long way. And the last thing is, at the venue, follow the venue's rules. The couple is responsible, technically for the venue. Like, they put down a security deposit, if any damage happens, and usually everything's usually fine. I've only had one instance where someone owed something because something in the bathroom, I don't know, something happened. And I don't know what happened for the wall to get dinged up. But that was like the only real instance. But don't wander to areas that are closed off to guests. Like there's a reason for that. Sometimes, venues won't allow food or drinks in certain areas, then just don't take it there. Some venues don't allow you to take shots, like of alcohol, of liquor. And the bartenders will tell you, and then they also won't usually overserve you. There are definitely places I've been where they overserve, but I think being a good guest means adhering to those rules as well, because ultimately any damage or any fallout can land on the couple, and you don't want that happening on their day. And then at the end, this isn't usually an issue, but you don't want to linger too long because the vendors have to break down and they have a contracted time they have to be out by, the couple. So don't linger too long. Say your goodbyes and head out. Maybe there's an after party for you to head to or whatnot. But, it's important to follow the venue's rules. I hope venues will thank me for saying that as well. So I hope that gave you a little bit of perspective. I didn't want to just be a good guest and that's it, because I think it's a two-way street. You want, as the couple, to set your guests up for success, and you want to provide them with as much information as possible. And for the guests, you want to show up the way you would show up to be a good friend or family member or just general good human being. And I think for me, I feel like it is a little bit of common sense, but at the same time, I'm thinking back to when I was in my 20s or very young and going to weddings or even being a wedding party member. And I'm like, what am I supposed to be doing? So I think it's totally fine if this is the first time that you're hearing something like this. If you've never attended weddings and you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't know about those things. But also I think, that goes to show it's important to inform yourself, educate yourself, maybe ask other people who have been to weddings, hey, what's the deal? You can Google, of course, watch videos like this to kind of help guide you. And I'm not here to judge anybody. It's just trying to shed light on things that I feel people don't always talk about. But again, I feel some of it is common sense. Some of it is, doing a little bit of research and keeping yourself informed if you don't know. But I would just, for me, I wouldn't ever just go to something or do something and expect that, the rules should revolve around me, because that's just not the case. And as a person being invited to someone's wedding, everyone has that auntie or friend who's gonna complain about something or the other. I've run into that with family, and you don't want to be that person. Have a positive attitude. If you're going to show up to someone's event, then show up and be there and be present, instead of making it about oh, how come this isn't like this, or how come this isn't like that. It's hard for me as a planner a lot of times, to be honest, but I do, when I walk into a room, I really try to be judgment-free, because I, as the planner too, also know how hard it is sometimes to get that day together, because you don't know what's happened before that or the week before that. And so I think it's important to walk in with a good attitude, be present for all of the things that matter. And I hope that was helpful, just to give you some perspective as both the couple and also as the person being invited as a guest to weddings. But with that, it's a little late, right? I'm sorry for being late again today. And I hope that you have a good week. And if remember to download my wedding planning checklist if you want some help, if you're just getting started. And yeah, we are also working on some fun promos for Los Angeles couples, hopefully next month. So stay tuned for that. And I look forward to seeing you next time. Have a good night.